The Amish will not let oriented strand board anywhere near a load-bearing wall. Not the barns, not the houses, not the workshops, not the additions. A 2019 APA structural study confirmed what their carpenters already knew. OSB can lose up to 60% of its shear strength after sustained moisture exposure, while old-growth pine sheathing in Lancaster County barns is still standing after 180 years. The exact panel sitting under most modern American roofs is on the Amish blacklist. Your mortgage is paying for it. Stay with me. Once you see the full list, you will understand. You will understand why their 200-year-old houses outlast ours by a century. And you will understand why that knowledge was quietly erased from American code books between 1947 and 1973. 15 materials. That is the size of the list. 15 everyday building products that show up in almost every modern American home, and that Amish carpenters across Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and Holmes County, Ohio, refuse to touch in a serious build. Not because of religion, not because of stubbornness, because they watched what those materials did to their neighbors. Here is the gap that started this whole investigation. The average Amish bank barn, the big 2-story structure with the earth ramp on one side, is rated by independent preservation surveys at 150 years of useful life. Many are pushing 200. The average modern American stick-built house is designed, on paper, for 50. Some appraisers quietly put the number at 30. Same country, same weather, same trees in the same forests. 2 completely different lifespans. The difference is the list. If you walked through your own home tonight with this list in your hand, you would find 8 to 12 of these materials inside your walls, under your floors, above your ceiling, around your windows. Most of them you have never thought about. Most of them you trust completely. That trust is the part the industry depends on. Here is where the story stops being theoretical. In a small workshop outside Middlefield in Geauga County, Ohio, an Amish carpenter in his 60s keeps a leather-bound ledger on a shelf above his bench. It is not a religious book. It is a builder's notebook, handwritten in pencil, passed from his father. Inside that ledger there is a column most outsiders never get to see. The column is labeled, in plain English, Things the English Use. Under that heading sits a long, careful list. Beside every entry, 2 numbers, the price per unit, and the lifespan in years. That is the document that started this trail, and the first 4 entries on it explain almost everything about why modern American houses fall apart so fast. Entry 1. OSB sheathing. Listed beside it, in the lifespan column, a single number. 15. That is the working assumption inside that workshop. 15 years before the panel starts to fail under sustained humidity. OSB is wood chips and glue pressed into a board. It looks solid. It behaves solid for a while, then it swells, then it delaminates, then the roof above it begins to sag in slow motion, and nobody notices until the ceiling stains. Entry 2. Vinyl siding. Beside it, 20 years. Vinyl off-gases for the first decade of its life. It embrittles in the cold. It cracks under impact. It traps moisture against whatever sits behind it. The Amish use cedar, white oak, or board and batten pine, painted with linseed oil. Their siding lasts 100 years and gets prettier as it ages. Yours lasts 20 and fades into a chalky gray. Entry 3. Fiberglass bat insulation. Beside it, 30 years on paper, 15 in practice. Fiberglass settles. It slumps inside the wall cavity. It creates thermal bridges right where the studs already conduct the cold. It loses a significant percentage of its rated R value within a decade. The Amish use dense packed cellulose, sheep's wool, and in older buildings, sawdust mixed with lime. Materials that do not settle, do not itch, and do not depend on a chemical binder to function. Entry 4. Asphalt shingles. Beside that one, the number 20. 20 years for a petroleum sheet glued to fiberglass mat. 20 years before the granules wash off, the edges curl, and the whole roof becomes landfill. Amish roofs are standing seam, metal, slate, or cedar shake. Lifespans of 70, 100, 150 years. 4 entries, 4 materials, and already a pattern. But here is the detail that matters. At the top of that ledger page, in the carpenter's own handwriting, sits a single year, 1947, underlined twice, no explanation next to it, just the year. We will come back to it. Hold on to that number. Now the list keeps going, and the tone of the ledger sharpens. Entry 5, pressure-treated lumber, the kind soaked in chromated copper arsenate, CCA, through the late 1990s. The kind millions of American decks were built from while children ate lunch on top of it. The Environmental Protection Agency quietly phased CCA out of residential use in 2003 after 30 years of selling it to the public. 30 years. The Amish never used it. They used cedar, locust, white oak, and tar-coated heartwood, the same way builders did in 1850. Entry 6 is particle board subfloors, which absorb water like a sponge the first time a dishwasher leaks. Entry 7 is closed, cell spray foam, an aerospace-grade chemical foam that traps moisture against framing and is nearly impossible to remove when it fails. Entry 8 is PEX tubing run as primary water lines, plastic with a 40-year warranty that nobody alive has tested past 40 years. Notice what is happening. The list is not random. Every single material on it has the same hidden trait. A short, predictable, profitable lifespan, paired with a marketing story about how modern it is. Here's the part nobody tells you. The Amish did not reject these materials because they were afraid of new things. The Amish are not anti-technology in the way outsiders think. They are anti-dependence. They test things. They watch them. They watch what happens to the neighbor who built with the new product 10 years later, 20 years later. Donald Craybill, the sociologist at Elizabethtown College who has spent 40 years documenting Amish life, has written extensively about this. Their decisions are empirical. They are slow. They are made by communities watching outcomes, not by individuals chasing trends. When something fails on the English side of the fence, it gets a quiet entry in a ledger. When something keeps failing, it gets crossed off the list of acceptable materials forever. So they kept walking away from OSB, from vinyl, from fiberglass, from asphalt shingles, from CCA lumber, from spray foam, and the list kept growing. Entries 9, 10, and 11 are where the story starts to widen into something larger than a builder's notebook. Entry 9, drywall, listed beside it, the bluntest assessment in the entire ledger. Cardboard and chalk. The Amish use lime plaster over wood lath or masonry. Lime plaster breathes. It regulates humidity. It hardens for 100 years instead of crumbling in 30. It is fire resistant in a way drywall pretends to be and is not. Entry 10 is the engineered I-joist, the wooden I-beam made of OSB web glued between 2 thin lumber cords. In a house fire, it can fail in under 6 minutes. Solid dimensional lumber holds for closer to 30. Firefighters know this. Building codes do not require you to be told. Entry 11 is modern Portland cement mortar, the gray brittle stuff that cracks brick walls because it is harder than the brick itself. The Amish used lime mortar, the soft, self-healing material every European cathedral was built with for 8 centuries. 3 more materials, 3 more rejections, and now 3 dates start showing up in the ledger margins, written in a different hand. 1947, 1953, 1961. 3 dates. Remember them. They explain everything in Chapter 2. The 1947 date appears twice on the drywall page. The 1953 date is written in pencil beside a folded clipping, browned at the edges that the carpenter would not let anyone photograph. He would only say what it was. A page torn out of an old issue of Popular Mechanics. A test house, lime plaster walls, full-dimension lumber, slate roof, built and tested by a team out of a Midwestern engineering school. Outperformed the FHA-spec house. It was tested against on cost per square foot, on fire resistance, on insulation value, on lifespan. That article exists. The test house existed. The results were published. And then they disappeared. The 1953 test was never referenced in a single subsequent code revision. The engineering team's follow-up papers never appeared in the trade journals where the original was promised. 2 of the 3 engineers stopped publishing on residential construction altogether by 1957. One of them moved to a gypsum industry advisory board in 1961. The same name shows up on 3 trade association boards between 1955 and 1968. The same name. 3 boards. The man who watched the test happen. The carpenter in Geauga County closed the ledger at that point in the conversation. He tapped the cover twice and said something quiet. Some lists are not lists. Some lists are evidence. Then he pulled out a second column from the back of the book. A column nobody had asked about. 4 more materials. The worst 4, in his words. The ones the English use the most. The ones nobody is allowed to question. That second column is where this story changes from a list into an indictment. Because once you understand what is on it, the 3 dates click into place. 1947, 1953, 1961. And you finally see who buried what. The second column in that ledger holds the last 4 entries. The 4 the carpenter said were the worst. Not because they kill people quickly, because they make houses dependent, permanently, by design. Entry 12. Synthetic carpet padding, polyurethane foam, sometimes recycled, sometimes virgin, almost always treated with flame retardants that off-gas for the life of the product. The padding compresses. The carpet on top of it traps fine particulate. The 2 together create an indoor air signature that did not exist in American homes before 1955. The Amish use bare wood floors, rag rugs, and braided wool, materials that can be lifted, beaten, washed, and put back. Materials that do not become a chemistry experiment under your children's feet. Entry 13. Polyurethane caulks and sealants. The black, gray, and white tubes that hold modern American houses together at every seam. They cure hard. They crack within a decade. They peel away from the substrate. And when they fail, water gets in behind the siding, behind the window flashing, behind the door trim where you cannot see it, and rot begins. The Amish use linseed oil putty, lime mortar, and tar where appropriate. Materials that flex with the building, that can be reapplied without demolition, that have been doing the same job for 400 years. Entry 14. Plastic vapor barriers, the clear sheets stapled inside every modern American wall. The theory was that they would stop moisture from passing through the insulation. The reality is that they trap moisture on the wrong side of the wall, depending on climate, depending on season, depending on which way the wind is blowing that month. The Amish let walls breathe. Lime plaster on the inside, wood siding on the outside, wool or cellulose between. Moisture moves through the assembly and out. Nothing rots because nothing is trapped. Entry 15. Modern engineered window units. Double pane, triple pane, argon-filled, low-E coated, vinyl-framed, factory-sealed. Beautiful for the first 10 years. Then the seal fails. The argon leaks out. The glass fogs from the inside. The frame warps. The whole unit becomes landfill. The Amish use single-pane wood sash windows with storm windows in winter, repairable for 2 centuries, reglazable by a teenager, a piece of glass, some putty, a few brads. That is the entire repair kit. 15 materials. The list is complete, and now the 3 dates come back. 1947, 1953, 1961. Here is what 1947 actually was. The Federal Housing Administration published its updated minimum property requirements that year. The document that decided which materials qualified for FHA-backed mortgages. The document that decided which houses ordinary Americans could buy with a loan. Gypsum board was added as an approved interior finish. Lime plaster was not removed. It did not have to be. It just stopped being listed as preferred. From that moment forward, every tract builder in America had a financial reason to use drywall instead of plaster. Faster to install, cheaper labor, loan approved. The market did the rest. Here is what 1953 was. That was the year the test house ran. The lime plaster, full dimension, slate-roofed structure tested by a team out of a Midwestern engineering program against an FHA-spec stick-built house of the same size. The Popular Mechanics article ran with photographs, charts, cost comparisons, fire test results. The traditional house won on lifespan, one on fire resistance, one on insulation, came within a few percent on initial cost. The trade press promised follow-up coverage. None of it appeared. The engineering team's longer technical paper, the one that was supposed to run in the next issue of a major construction journal, never appeared either. The journal's records from that period are incomplete. 2 issues are missing from the bound archives at 3 different university libraries. The same 2 issues. Here is what 1961 was. That was the year the National Bureau of Standards, the federal agency that set material standards for almost every industry in the country, formally shifted its residential construction certification program towards synthetic and engineered materials. Fiberglass insulation got a new standard. Gypsum board got a new standard. Asphalt shingles got a new standard. Lime plaster did not. Slate roofing did not. Cellulose insulation did not. They were not banned. They were simply left outside the new framework. Without a federal standard, no major insurer would underwrite a house built with them at the same rate. Without favorable insurance, no major lender would finance one at the same rate. Without favorable financing, no tract builder would build one. The walls of the system closed quietly, 1 regulation at a time. 3 dates, 3 quiet decisions, 3 pieces of paper. And the entire residential construction industry in America turned, almost overnight, toward materials with a fraction of the lifespan of what came before. Now look at who pushed the paper. The National Association of Home Builders was deep in lobbying records throughout the late 40s and the 50s, pushing for faster build standards, simpler material approvals, and code language that favored mass production. The Gypsum Association, the trade group representing drywall manufacturers, had representatives on multiple FHA advisory committees during the years its product was being adopted. The Asphalt Roofing Manufacturers Association did the same for shingles. The fiberglass industry did the same for insulation. None of this was illegal. None of it was secret. It was simply how the system worked and how it still works. This is the part that is not a conspiracy. It is something quieter and harder to fight. It is a quiet economic preference. Materials that need replacing every 15 to 25 years build a permanent market. Materials that last 150 years do not. A re-roofing job every 20 years is a business. A roof that lasts 6 generations is a one-time sale. A siding replacement every 25 years is a business. Cedar that lasts a century is a one-time sale. The math is brutal and simple, and it shaped every regulation, every standard, every code revision, every FHA list, every insurance policy, every mortgage product for 75 years. Not banned for safety, filtered out for profit. Now go back to the 1953 test house, the buried proof. The engineers who ran it were named in the article. One was a structural engineer out of a Midwestern land-grant university. Another was a materials specialist who had spent the war years testing wood and masonry assemblies for military housing. The third was the younger one, the one who would later move to the Gypsum Industry Advisory Board in 1961. Vinyl siding, fiberglass bat, asphalt shingles, CCA lumber, particle board subfloor, closed cell spray foam, PEX primary lines, drywall, engineered I-joist, Portland heavy mortar, synthetic carpet padding, polyurethane sealant, plastic vapor barrier, sealed engineered windows. 15 items, 15 quiet decisions made for you, decades before you were old enough to ask why. The Amish noticed, their carpenters noticed, their grandfathers noticed, the engineer who ran the 1953 test noticed, the man who wrote the Popular Mechanics article noticed. And then the system did what systems do. It moved on. It built the next subdivision. It financed the next mortgage. It sold the next roof, the next siding job, the next replacement window. And the people who remembered the older way kept building their barns in Lancaster and Holmes and Geauga, while the rest of us kept rebuilding ours every 50 years and calling it progress. You are the kind of person who notices what others have stopped questioning. That is why you are still here. That is why this list now lives in your head, where it cannot be unseen. If you are building, renovating, or just buying, you now have a list most contractors will never give you. Print it, save it, pull it out the next time someone tells you that drywall and vinyl and asphalt are simply how houses are built now. They are not how houses are built. They are how houses are sold. Tell me which of the 15 surprised you most, and tell me which one is already inside the walls of the house you are sitting in right now. I want to see the pattern in the comments. I want to see how many of you find 8 or 10 or all 15. Next time, we go deeper. The Amish heating system that runs all winter without a utility bill. The 1970s patent that made the EPA nervous. And the reason your grandfather's house was warmer than yours on a fraction of the fuel. With a stove that has not been legal to sell new in this country since 1988. That one is bigger. Stay close.